Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
We're Neverboard Gaming, and we always say sup nerds, and then our names, and then we talk about the game we're going to talk about. But we're going to do a different intro for you, and here it is. So Everdell is a worker placement slash just card playing and sort of engine building game when you play those cards. And actually, one game that it did kind of remind me of there's different enough that, it's definitely not a carbon copy. If you've played this game, you won't be like, oh, I know how to play Everdell. But if you've played Imperial Settlers, I actually felt a lot of similarities there because it was a lot of card play and a lot of comboing thing, but you only did one action per turn. So you had a lot of, in between every action you did, you had a lot of ability to alter that plan that you had in your head.
I was listening, but I don't know where to go from there. So it is an interesting mix of the two because when I sat down, I thought it was just pure worker placement, and we were handed 2 workers, and I'm like, that's it? And I'm like, okay, well, you unlock more, but so it's only 4 rounds, you unlock another one each time. I'm like, that's not that many actions. And they're like, well, I mean, you have a limit of 15 cards, and we always hit it every time we play it. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know. How can you do this? Not enough workers. But you don't have to place a worker to play a card, which is a lot of other games. It seems like the worker placement is okay, you place here to collect resources, you place here to complete a quest or play a card or do something. This, it's you're placing mainly to get resources, and then if you have the resources, you can, play the card either directly from the buying area, which is called the
meadow.
The meadow, yeah, or you can just play it from your hand because you have a hand of cards, and there's even, you're saying, there's more combos after you've got a card in play. Some critters are attracted to those different constructions you have. The farm will attract the wife or the husband, which are little mice, and you can do it once for free, and you just put a little shield on it marking that you've used that ability, and then you get to put that card in play. So there's combos.
That's one example of the combos.
Yeah.
That's actually like a built-in combos. It's very similar to the building construction thing in Seven Wonders. You can build by Link, I think is what they call it maybe in that game, but in Seven Wonders, if you build this, and it even says at the bottom of this card, it'll say, if you build this card, you will be able to build this card for free, and on that card, you'll say in the top left, oh, if you have built this, you will get to build this card for free. That's really cool, but there's other combos that you can do as well. But I will piggyback on that idea that, you only play 2 workers, and then you get them back, and you get to play 3 workers, then you get them back, and you get to play 4 workers, and then the last one is 6 workers, because it's not a round. It's not we each play our 2 workers and then we all get them back. It's once you are out of actions, and that includes your 2 workers and all the cards you can play, then you bring your stuff back. So it's not like Champions or Lords of Waterdeep, where we all place our workers within this round, and once we're done, we take them back, which means it removes that first player the rush, the spot where come here to take first player that everybody's gunning for, or the spot where come here to get more workers, or do this to buy more workers. I like the idea of getting more workers just throughout the process of the game, because in, so Lords of Waterdeep does that, but in Champions of Midgard, or in Rajas of the Ganges, there's a way for you to get a worker, and if you can get workers before them, you have such a huge advantage. So that's always something that everyone's bum rushing to do. And here,
you can kind of do that, though. If you move on to the next round, but then other players' meeples are still on the board, taking up spots that you would be instead trying to get to.
No, that's true. That's the thing. So you can do this, but you're not necessarily super incentivized to do it. In those other games, it's that's a really, really powerful. That's one of the best moves. And here, if I'm hurrying up and going to season, is that a great thing? Sure, I got more workers, and I clear out, and I move my workers off these spots. Maybe I can go it again, but now you can go there again. You have to retrain your brain. If you played all these other worker placement games, I'm like, oh, I'm going to want to do this. I'm like, oh, wait, maybe I don't in this,
There's actually the blue cards they're called the governance cards, these cards, governance?
Blue governance. There's 2 N's. Governance.
Did
you ever learn how to sound out words? You ever learn when you were a kid, you have to sound it out?
No. Anyways, these cards are really cool for comboing because they allow you to gain a resource whenever you play a certain card. So the shopkeeper, every time you play a critter card, you get another berry, which can help you play another critter card eventually. Like you need two. Most critters require 2 berries to feed them, but then once you play them, you get another berry, and you're halfway to playing another one. So it's really cool combo-y stuff.
And I had one where I get to draw a card every time I play a critter or a construction. And I even asked, I was like, wait a minute, what type is there other than critter and construction? Like, no, those are the 2 types. So every card I play, I get to like immediately replace it into my hand. That's awesome. And even if I play a card from here, I'll get to add a new card to my hand. So you do have that hand limit of 8. And 8 sounds like a lot. But when you're sifting through all those cards thinking like, I want to be able to play all of these. I want to be able to play 5 cards that all trigger and maybe let me play other cards. And then, you especially because so many of them are so unique. Like, it's not like a deck of whatever it is, 100 cards. Or let's say it's 100 cards. It's not like there's 20 different cards in there. There's like 80 different cards in there.
Yeah, there's a couple repeats. There's like, there might be 2 of every card. Maybe. There's some of them I'd see it once and that was it. And I'm like,
Good point.
Like if you get the wife and the husband, you're like lucky to get that pair. You might not get that pair again.
So there's common and unique. I think unique. There's maybe either 1 or 2 because I think we saw 2 queens at one point.
Yeah, there's 2 queens. So maybe so it's just like a collector card game, I guess. The unique ones, you can only have 1 in your area, so they're not going to make a lot of them because at max there'd be 4 in play, but they don't want everybody to have them because they're powerful cards. And then the common critters, you could just get a lot of them and have multiples of the same one.
So we're talking about all these different types of cards, and there are a lot of different types of cards, and they do combo really well. The only thing I notice is there is never really like a huge explosion. The cost of cards is always significant enough that okay, like you playing that one to get you 1 berry. There's almost no cards that's just 1 berry. Like it's never gonna like go really, really quick, like a Gizmos or whatever, where like sometimes you could be like, well, I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna take 1, which triggers 4 other picks. When I pick these, that triggers this to happen, and that triggers that to happen. So it's never gonna be like a huge snowball effect, but it is a decent amount of cool stuff that you could trigger.
Depending on what cards you put into your city, it will change the effects all the time because it's what you play. But the production ones are really interesting because when you move on from, it's into spring, and then when you move into autumn, you actually get to trigger all of your production cards again. They trigger the first time you play them. There's a couple other card effects that can trigger them. You can like oh, I'm going to trigger this one. But going into those seasons, you re-trigger them. So if you can get a couple of them, a couple that'll like provide you with the resources you need to build something else you're holding onto your hand, you can really, build that engine in a unique way.
So it's when you play them and when you go to season. So this first going to season
isn't very eventful.
It's not. And I think that's one other thing, minor complaint I have is that you kind of need to know, if you've played the game before, there's at least a few things you need to kind of like tell people. Like, sure, there's a lot of different cards, right? So knowing those different cards, it's kind of important. I guess just like in any drafting game or something like that, when there's a lot of cards, it's important to know the cards. But also like, look, it's not that big a deal to trigger this right here. What was the game we played recently? We were like, nobody scores the first time. Bunny Kingdom. You were like, we're going to do 4 scoring things. And you're like, it's okay if you don't... You would
don't
say
score much the first round.
And that's true. I realized that. And after you did that, then when I started explaining that to other people, I would always say that. I'd always be like, look, it's not necessarily super important to bum rush to try and get stuff on the board for that first scoring round because that's only a couple of points. Like, it's better to save up to get those buildings and have them sitting on the cards or something,
Yeah, just putting them out there haphazardly and putting them in the wrong spot could be detrimental. Like, you actually need to have strategy. And with this, like, you could have early game strategy of trying to get a couple productions in play, but you got to kind of play the long game too. Like, if by the time you get to autumn, that's when you really want to have the most of them in play. You might not be able to play 4 or 5 cards by here. Like, this is like you're getting like 2 or 3 cards in play. It's not going to produce much. You're going to go into summer and you're like, nothing produced when we went into summer. Man, I really have to work through the summer.
But you do get to draw cards.
You get cards, but it's not producing resources. Like, cards can be used. There are places you can go, like, get rid of your cards to draw resources. So that's
Well, those are optional. They swap out because there are 4 spots in here that are cards.
it's a permanent.
Oh wow! No, I was thinking about this. Or not that one. There's another one. You're right. Okay, so that one is permanent. I don't know why I was thinking.
Well, this one's better though. Discard up to 3 cards and gain 1 of any for each card. So that's 2. You discard 2 cards to get 1 resource, but
either way, that is true. That what I was saying.
Yeah.
That there are some places that swap out.
Yeah, the forest cards are really powerful. They're more powerful than the basic ones that are permanently on the board. And you shuffle them up, you always only have 4 in play, and there's this whole stack of them. So like every game is gonna be different. Like
I kind of wonder why more worker placement games don't do that. Have optional, like think about in Lords of Waterdeep, you have the buildings that you can build, but there's always going to be those static ones. There's never like, maybe you could you play a game of Lords of Waterdeep where you just started with a couple buildings just out there, just for
why
fun?
not?
Yeah. Okay. Now we spent a lot of time in this review talking about other games, so you haven't played any of those games. I don't know if any of those analogies are going to help you.
So what's the point of all of this game? What are you actually trying to do? You're actually, you're trying to build up your tableau of up to 15 cards. Once you hit your 15 max, you're done, which will happen unless you have made really bad decisions.
I didn't get to 15 and I beat you.
Shut up. But every card you play has some sort of victory point associated with it. They range from like 1 to 4. I think there's one that was 5.
There's 1 5 right there.
Yeah, there's a couple 5s. There's a couple 0s actually, which actually just have really good effects when you use them. And you're trying to get, the biggest thing is you're trying to get an accumulation of a certain type of cards. And once you get like 3 of the governance cards, you can come and place one of your workers on here and claim this extra 3 points. It's just like, hey, I've achieved this thing. I've done, the most of this. I claim these 3 points, and that's 3 points that aren't taking up a slot in your 15 spots. So that's really, it's really good.
Yeah, it is important to think about that. Like the 15 slots, that's a limit. So every 1 card that you put down, that's taking away from a 3 or 4 that you could be putting down. Yeah, assuming you're using all 15. But those 0s that you put down, there are other cards that get rid of those cards. That's really important. And those 0s are really good when you put them down. And what I'm realizing is I don't think there are any blank cards. There's not like in space, like in Space Base or something, where there can be a card that's just a lot of points, but it's blank. A lot of games will have that kind of thing. But I don't think there is anything like that in here. They always do at least something. Even if it's not that good, it's something.
Yeah, if they're worth a lot of points, they're usually really high cost. You can reduce the cost of cards with other cards. There's some cards you discard from play to reduce the cost of a card. Depending on what cards you have in the forest, there's one that you could just reduce the cost by 1 whenever you buy it from the meadow. So you're just trying to build up your engine, and then either you're getting those certain types of cards, or there's actually these other achievements up here for having 2 of a certain card in play. So like this one says have the teacher and the university in play. Then you can come place on this to take this, and it gives you a unique scoring opportunity.
And that is a really big deal because the discard pile is face down, which when we were playing, our friends were showing it to us. They're like, I don't know why the discard pile is face down. But, after we're looking at stuff like this and some other cards that pair with other cards, you're like, oh, if you can't tell if that card is gone or not, you could be gunning for this, not knowing that the card you're looking to draw has already been drawn and discarded by another player. Like, I like that aspect of being because there isn't a lot of player interaction. There's not a lot of messing with another player other than blocking where they're going, or there's one card, the Fool, that you can play on somebody else. It's negative points, but there's not a lot of I'm going to destroy this from you. So having a couple little sneaky things like that of, oh, I drew this card that he wanted and I'm going to discard it and he's not going to know, that's good. Because that was one minor complaint was that it, we didn't interact with there's not a lot I could do to mess with him if he's in the lead kind of thing.
Yeah, you can try and take away resources, like you said, by going to a place I might want to go. But there's kind of always a way around it. Like, you can go somewhere else and get resources. There's one card, the Lookout, that you can put in play, and, once it's in play, you can use it every time that you have workers and that space is open to copy the effect of any of the basic actions or the forest actions. So, like, you have an unblockable spot once you build that Lookout.
So overall, There's a lot of really cool stuff in this game. A lot of fun playing it. If you've played any, as you've been hearing us say, Imperial Settlers, any worker placement game, you should be able to pick it up really easily. But the few negatives that I had was the lack of player interaction. And I guess it does kind of get a little slow, especially towards the end when you have like tons of cards in your hand and you want to play all of them, but you can only play one per turn. So I have this. It could be a benefit, maybe. You might think, oh, I have all this time to reevaluate my plan. But if you don't change your plan, or you don't want to reevaluate your plan for whatever reason, you got these 5 cards you want to play. Okay, my turn comes around, play one. Okay, turn comes around, play one. Turns go by fast because you're only just placing one worker or playing one card. However, it does feel like it's taking forever when you're just staring at the same 5 cards. Okay, now I'm staring at these 4 cards. Okay, now I'm staring at these 3 cards.
Yeah. I never had that many resources to play a card every turn.
Well, you did at the end. You did when you got all those resources from this.
From Autumn, yeah, it did. I had a lot of wood. Which, let's talk about the components real quick. Epic components.
Oh, gorgeous! Look at this tree.
Yeah, like it definitely just like draws people when you're playing this. If you have this set up at your local game store, or just friends are coming over and you have this on the table, like whoa. I'm interested in playing this. If you get the collector's edition, you get, instead of these tokens, you get nice shiny golden ones. Ooh. You get this little sleeve to put over your game if you want to make your game
look from the elements
and look a little different.
If you keep it outside.
The collector's edition also came with legendary cards, which you'll deal out 2 to each player. You get a critter and a construction, and then they are secret cards that you can build during the game. They give you a lot more points. They're extremely unique because there's only going to be one of them in play. They don't count towards your hand limit, which is really cool, so you can just be holding on to them, trying to work towards getting them in play.
There's also the extra cards, which are just more and they can also trigger off of, so like you were saying, like the juggler here is a good example. He
triggers off of the carnival, which is already in the base game, which the Fool triggers off of. So it just gives you another option to play off of. Kind of like with the farm, you can bring the wife or the husband with that free action of like, okay, I'm going to use the farm to bring the husband or the wife. Like,
cool beans.
So overall, I really enjoyed this game. I always like worker placements, and this one is pretty unique. Like having the tree is, kind of just brings you this extra construct. It kind of gives depth to the game, but it doesn't really like make the game.
You don't need to have it, but I'm glad we do.
Yeah. But the gameplay is what makes this game Everdell. What makes it awesome to me. Like, it's a worker placement, but there's also kind of this deck building, tableau building, because you have this lineup of cards that you can buy. There's ways to pick them up, put them in your hand, and work on them. I mean, you could just pick it up just to get it off the board and then discard it later just so somebody else can't build it. There's a lot going on, but it is like just very fluid, like going from season to season, like not having to like, okay, Aaron, you're the last one on this turn, hurry up and finish your turn so that we can go on to the next round. It's like whenever you're ready to go on to the next round, you just do it. You go to the next round, you get more workers, you're in the next season. It doesn't make sense logically that you're in one season, I'm still in the last season, but it still works. It's just like very fluid, very like, okay, I'm going to take this action, get these resources, use these resources to make cards, get the cards I need to complete these objectives to get more points, and crush my opponents.
So if any of what we were talking about sounds interesting to you, we're going to put a purchase link to Everdell in the description box down below. Go ahead and grab yourself a copy.
While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
Can't believe how hot it is.
Welcome to Everdell! It's a tiny town with a big old tree, and there's little animals in the tree. Welcome! There's the card types, in case you're wondering. Yeah. Just like the blue ones, the red ones.
That's what I do. It doesn't matter to me.